Okay, so hello everybody and welcome to Books Presents, and today we're very happy to welcome on Tiffany Crosara, who's one of our authors, and she's a tarot expert, a psychic, general divination and spiritual sciences expert, and she's published 2 books with us, the Transformational Truth of Tarot and the Transformational Truth of YOU. She's been professionally assisting others to clearly identify their blocks and work through them for over 12 years. The Transformational Truth of Tarot won Best Spiritual Book Award of 2012, and she's also done a lot of TV work, and she was awarded Best Newcomer TV Intuitive in 2013, and also won an award in 2014 for inspiring human potential and assisting people make better life choices. She's a real tarot master, one of the leading tarot teachers in the world. She's co-author of Tarot Masters as well, which is also published by Hay House, and the Transformational Truth of YOU is building on all her tarot wisdom and the way she uses it into building into a really deep kind of metaphysical map for your own personal inner transformation. So welcome, Tiffany. Hello.
Thank you very much, Ben. What an introduction. Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine, thank you. I'm excited to have you on, as I love the tarot myself. Right. And I just wanted to start off asking you how you came to like the tarot, or the tarot found you, and a little bit about how you came to be doing what you're doing, working with tarot, helping people make better choices and teaching people about it.
Okay, well, I love how you put how the tarot found me, because that's exactly what happened when I was 4 years old, and it was on my mum's living room floor. Even though my mum says she never really read the tarot, I mean, she did kind of play with it, I guess, every now and again, but she always says it was obvious that the reason she had a deck was for me. So instead of finding dolls on the living room floor at 4, I found tarot. And,
wow.
I mean, the high priestess, once you found her, Barbie just doesn't cut the mustard anymore, or the magician, Ken doesn't really do it for you anymore. So, I just, it was such a bright deck as well. It was the 70s, so it was Alfred Douglas's tarot deck, which was really psychedelic. It was like lime green and purple and really way out there. And it just, it imprinted. If you've ever seen Twilight, have you seen Twilight?
You know what? I
series?
Haven't, but I haven't.
Where they imprint on each other, and that's it for life. You haven't?
No, I want to see it. I do.
You were saying you haven't?
I haven't. I'm not.
Oh, okay.
I'm not a snob. I do want to see it, but I think. But no, I haven't seen it.
I'm fixing you it. Well, the viewers that have seen it will know what I mean when I say they imprinted on me. That's what happened, really, at the age of 4. But I don't know if you've ever had this experience in life as well, where something comes into your life and then maybe that's a person or a place or a job or something, and then it goes away. It's almost like a trailer of your life coming attractions or what's going to be happening in the future, and it goes away and then it comes back later on. I mean, that's what happened with the tarot. So it was when I was 14, that was 10 years later was the next time I saw the tarot. And again, it was my mum's bed this time, lying on my mum's bed, and I just picked them up and thought, okay, they're coming to my bed. So I took them to my bedroom, like you do as a teenager. You start looking at them and wanting them to tell you that everything is going to be okay because you're like a goth or an emo or everything's wrong in the world, and the next decision you make at school is going to end your life, and so I was really in that place with it, and all I could really do at that age with the tarot was wind myself up good and proper, because, you know, I didn't understand that it was a mirror. And so I did the typical thing that people do, which is, I don't like that reading, I'm going to do another one, and I'm going to do another one, and I'm going to do another one until it tells me what I want to hear. And of course it never does, because it's a mirror, you know, and if you haven't changed, then it won't change. So actually what I developed was obsessive compulsive disorder. And my mental health really went down. It just went from bad to worse. And I managed to start helping myself around the age of 16, when it kind of hit rock bottom, and I started to change a lot of things in my life. And the tarot, I don't think it was either in it or not in it, but I wasn't doing it as much. And then when I became pregnant at the age of 19, something basically said to me to do a reading. I don't know what possessed me, to be honest. And when I was doing it, I saw that I was going to lose the child. And I basically dealt with it the way that I was always dealing with tarot, which was, I'm just going to deny that. I'm going to deny that that happened. I didn't see that. And if I don't speak about it, then it's not going to happen. And if I don't touch the cards again, then it's not going to happen. And I shut the cards away. I didn't burn them. I didn't throw them away, which was kind of telling in itself. But I did shut them away. It was like, that's it. And when my daughter was 4 months old, so I had her, I gave birth to her. Her name was Lauren. But she was born with a terminal illness. And there was nothing really we could do for her. So at 4 months old, we had to make the decision to turn the life support machine off. But we did have some time at home with her. We had a Christmas at home with her, and it was beautiful and it was amazing. And she was definitely a soul that came here to show me that life was something to be honored. Before that, I had a massive disregard for life. I really didn't want to be here. I was very annoyed that I was born again. I was just like really in a place of disregard for life. And, you know, after Lauren, I really had to work at changing that in myself. Otherwise, I felt that I was, you know, she came here and she suffered so much. I felt like basically to carry on the way I was blasphemy to her soul. So I then started telling people what I'd seen in the tarot. I'm just getting there now with the end of this story. I started telling people what I'd seen in the tarot, and they basically said, oh, well, will you read for me? And I was expecting them to say, well, don't do that again, you know. And I was a bit surprised. And then I started thinking, well, if I've seen everything I have and I've lived through everything I have, then maybe there's a way that I can work with it that helps people live their life rather than them being in fear of prediction. And so then I basically committed my life to finding out how to work with the flow of the divine energies for the highest good, rather than being in that place of anxiety where we feel like we want the answers and we want reassurance and we want to control what is happening. And that's what I've devoted my life to ever since.
Wow. There's so much in your story that I love. That not only well, I think anyone who studies any kind of divination can relate to getting a bit obsessive or a bit overly negative, or doing 1,000 readings trying to change the result, or just getting a bit too intense about it, which was some of the things you were talking about. But also, and then the story of your daughter and the tarot reading showing you that direction, and you saying that the tarot, you saw quite quickly that the tarot was a mirror, and when you did readings with the tarot, they were a mirror. Now, for someone who maybe is a little bit interested in the tarot, but maybe a little bit scared about the kind of fatalistic or sort of superstitious nature, who says, I'm kind of interested, but how could it be a mirror, or how that's a bit freaky for me. Can you maybe elaborate on maybe how a reading is and how we use it a little bit more?
Yeah. Okay. So, well, we have the psychologist that is most famously linked to this type of area, which is Carl Jung.
Yeah.
And, his theory of synchronicity, which basically talks about the subconscious, so the subconscious, I can't remember the actual number I'm looking for, but it's something high, isn't it? It's like it rules like something like 86 or maybe 90% of our brain, so it's like the hard program in the computer, and you just press a few keys and you can access that program, and your subconscious is that program, it's that hard drive, really. So your subconscious regulates your breathing. You don't have to think, oh, I'm going to breathe now, for instance. It just happens. Yeah. It's the same when you shuffle. I know it sounds weird, but like when you shuffle, your subconscious is putting the archetypal symbolic language of the subconscious in an order that's relevant for you. Like I never ask my clients to think of what they want when they're shuffling. I'm like, don't, it's like you don't have to work at pushing the river along. The universe knows exactly, what's going on, and you know exactly what's going on. So basically it's just allow it to just fall out and basically show you what it is that deep down inside without your fear or your confusion. Like a good reading will leave you feeling really confident in your own intuition. I remember one client saying to me, you haven't told me anything I don't already know. And I was like, yeah, I know. And they were like, no, you don't get it. You haven't told me anything I don't already know. And I was like, yeah, I get it. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the idea is when you sit down for a reading and you ask a question, the pictures and the patterns, the cards that you turn over are sort of reflecting back to you in that you said archetypal image form what's going on in your life or what's going on around the question at the time.
Yeah, I mean the way that I actually, because really I concentrate more on teaching people, well, not even teaching people, it's like guiding people through the archetypal journey of the tarot. And we don't look at meanings, we don't look at books. We do work with the number one deck of all time, which is the Rider-Waite, because, I mean, it's number one, not because it's one of the most picturesque, it's like choosing a partner. It's like, it's not necessarily what the eye candy is, it's what's in it. It's what makes it up that makes it the best. And you don't realize how much you already know. So like you'll go to a book, for instance, to look up the meanings, and then you'll always think it's in the book and that it's not in you. But if you know some ways of working with the tarot, you can start to unlock the knowledge and then go, oh my God, that's all within me already.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think that relates because when I've studied the tarot, and when I got that deck, and I remember lying on my bed and looking through the images, and I didn't really understand, but I just was kind of fascinated. I kind of thought, I know these. I can't put my finger on it, but I kind of do. They're speaking to me as if they're somehow in there already. And maybe that idea that the tarot is a selection of 78 powerful archetypal images which are in our own lives all the time. Maybe you could explain a little bit about those images. Absolutely. And how they work.
Okay, so for instance, maybe I'll tell you a few stories.
Yeah.
So the Fool is the first card that you come across, and that is wow, probably the most powerful one, because it's his journey. The tarot is his journey, and he represents our soul. So just stop me at any time, because I can go on all day like this. Okay, so you have permission to stop me. Okay, but the Fool is basically, it's his journey. He's the soul. He's been born. He's here in life. And the way that I work with people is I ask them to live a card a day. And one time I was on the Fool, because I've done this journey many a time. So it was the Fool day for me. And just like you were talking, you went to see the Comedy Store at the weekend. I ended up at a comedy show on the day of the Fool. It wasn't planned. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go to a comedy show because I'm on the Fool. I hadn't even made the correlation. And we were sat there, and it was a bit of a dry lineup. It was like clone after clone of stand-up comedian, and it was a bit wah wah. Yeah. And then right at the end, this little guy came on the stage, dressed like a complete idiot and completely out there, and totally, didn't give a flying you-know-what about how he came across. And he brought the whole place down. And then I clicked. I was like, oh, my God, there's the Fool. And, oh, gosh, yeah, now I get it. And the message for me was, to be yourself, to be unashamedly, I can't even say it, unashamedly, you know what I mean, the word, yourself, because that's where your power is. It's not in trying to copy others or... it's in your own uniqueness. And then the Fool goes on to the Magician, for instance. Yeah. So basically, this is where he meets his divine will or his consciousness. One student put up a video in the group when she was on Magician Day of her little 4-year-old son in a red cape with a spade and a bucket and 2 other things on the table in front of him. And we all went, wow, like, your grandson is your magician. And she went, oh, my God, because she just posted it up randomly and was like, look at my grandson. And didn't have the link again that it was the magician. The magician had appeared in her life. And so that's what I do. I take people through that journey and I help them to see the archetype that appears to them in their life, which takes them through this journey, which is their Fool's journey, which is also known as the Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell. So it's like, you really get to know yourself at an incredibly deep level, which of course is what is called enlightenment, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I keep going round and round the journey. There's many layers, like onions.
Yeah. Oh,
so it would take you all day to go through all of them.
Yeah. Well, I have to.
But is there something you wanted to know in particular?
Well, a couple of things actually. Well, first I want to say that if anyone out there is interested in the tarot and getting to grips with these symbols and really knowing them and feeling them and learning how to do readings, then I definitely recommend to sign up for your course on your website, and also the book, The Transformational Truth of Tarot, which the two dovetail together really nicely. And you said you do a card a day, and it's that way of getting really close to an image each day and seeing how it appears in your life, like you said, like the child or the Fool on stage. So I'd recommend that. But I'd also those first 2 cards, they are the major arcana, is that right? And they are the first, I can't remember how many, 18 or 9, a few more than that of the deck.
22.
22, first 22 of the deck. And you say when you look at them together, they kind of show you the journey of your whole life, but also all the little journeys you do in your life as you go through it. Would you say that's right?
Absolutely. So the tarot is made up of 2 decks. Yeah. You have the 22 major arcana, which is your archetypal gods and goddesses and symbols. And then you have your 4 suits of the minor arcana, which is basically your playing cards. So you have basically, you can do divination with playing cards. It's called cartomancy. It's what gypsies use. it's predictive, because the minor arcana is about what happens here in your life, the who, what, where, when. Whereas the major arcana is the bigger picture behind it, and is your spiritual evolution, and is the reasons why things are playing out as they are. So they give you the understanding of why things are the way they are. You could see these as the puppeteers that are pulling the strings. So the major arcanas are the puppeteers that are pulling the strings of the minor arcana puppets, if that makes sense.
I see. No, that's really clearly put. And I was going to say, can't talk. I stop talking in a second about the actual cards, but I quite like to ask you one last thing. The major arcana, like the puppeteers pulling the strings, and the minor arcana, you're saying, like the day-to-day specifics of the ins and outs of what's going on. But there's, I know the minor arcana, there's a suit of swords, a suit of pentacles, a suit of wands, and a suit of cups, and they're connected to the elements of air, earth, fire, and water. And this was a revelation to me when I did English literature at university. I did Elizabethan literature, and you'd read that in that time they believed there were 4 elements, but no one had really explained to you what that meant really. And you just think, oh, that's an old way of thinking. It's been but actually, the 4 elements are incredibly powerful way of understanding our life now. So I just wondered if you could say something very briefly about the 4 different suits and the elements and how they connect.
Sure. Okay. So for that, I'm going to go back to the magician. And I'm going to hold him up for a second, because what he has on the table in front of him is the sword, the cup, the wand, and the pentacle. So basically, in my way of seeing things, the sword comes first, the mighty sword. Okay. Now the sword is air, and air is what your thoughts come through, or air is the closest thing to spirit. So it's like you have the thought, you have the inspiration, something comes into you, and when you've had that thought, you then get the feeling, which is cups, which is the water. And then you get inspired to take action, which is the fire, which is wands. And then you end up with the results, which is earth or pentacles. I went to Barcelona and I saw the Sagrada Familia, which is what Gaudi built. And Gaudi was so the magician. He worked with all the 4 elements, and he was an architect. It always resulted in a pentacle. He brought all the elements together all the time. And so this is the sacred recipe of life. What you think, what you feel, what you act upon shall be,
And it's a great way for understanding if you're looking at things too cold or intellectually, or just thinking too much, then that's maybe too much air. Or if you're caught up in your feelings and not taking action, maybe that's too much water. It's a way of understanding yourself as well.
Absolutely, totally. Swords are known as quite a difficult suit, but actually they're only really quite challenging at the end, because the beginning of the thought is always great. It's when we actually overthink it that it becomes really, really challenging. And swords and wands swords and wands are similar. It's at the beginning of action that you feel inspired, but it's like really bringing it into manifestation at the end is really hard work. Whereas pentacles and cups are kind of better later down. It's like at the beginning of pentacle, you've just got £1. How are you going to invest that, for instance? But at the end of it, even though you may have gone bankrupt in the middle at the 5 of pentacles, at the end of it, you still got the 10 of pentacles, because that's what you've learned from. And that comes from old age and wisdom. So that takes quite a bit of maturity. And the same with your feelings. It takes a lot of maturity. the definition of maturity is not hurting someone who has hurt ourselves, or not feeling the need to hurt someone that's hurt us. And, that takes a huge journey through your emotions. So the 10 of Cups is at the end. So Pentacles and Cups are happier, so to speak, at the end, when they're more mature and they've gone through the cycle. And Swords and Wands are like easier in a way to speak at the beginning with inspiration, and harder with the heaviness or the burden towards the end.
Yeah. I love the way you talk about it. It's so clear and concise, and brings those stories, because the whole 1 to 10 tell a story. So if someone came, if I was coming to you for a reading and we sat down and I would shuffle the deck and I'd have something on my mind. Probably it might be my relationship or my job or whatever, and there would be a mirror somehow to life as it is now, what's happening to me now. If I came in a little bit nervous about it's going to show me something terrible that's fated, how would you deal with me? Or how would that's I guess that's people's one little bugbear, isn't it, to going for a reading like this?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I can understand it. There's times when, I hardly ever read for myself anymore. Because, there are times that you maybe see something that you don't want to see. And then it's like, ignorance is bliss, and now I don't have it anymore. Great, thanks. So I can kind of understand that. And particularly, it's like you're stepping out of your comfort zone, coming for a reading, and you're basically showing up and saying, okay, I'm taking step here to know. Now, the main problem is this entertainment purposes only kind of thing that we've had to do, because people come and they think then that it's about entertainment or curiosity, and that can be the worst mindset to go into a reading with. I think, the best mindset to go into a reading with is it's a mirror that will tell me everything I already know. However, we are challenged with being honest with ourselves, and so there is, the best way you can support yourself to go into a reading is to go, am I ready to be really honest with myself? Have I got to a place in my life where I know that something needs to change and I'm ready to face it? If you're not, don't go for a reading, quite honestly.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it, and makes me want to go for a reading, actually. And also it's I speaking personally, I've always felt better once you do look things in the face, whatever it is, positive, negative. Once you're honest about it, it's always liberating.
Completely.
There's a freedom there, and it would help. And it also helps to
I would agree.
And it helps the reader. The reader has some compassionate skills and some sensitivity skills, which you clearly have. That must be important in doing readings as well.
Absolutely. So when I first started reading, I was thrown in at the deep end. I opened a shop in South London, 2 minutes away from the Maudsley Centre, which is London's largest psychiatric unit. And, obviously tarot has the ability to attract people that are having a lot of mental health issues. And I was thrown right in at the deep end, and, really had to learn that, the need for positivity and not negativity. And I don't mean sugarcoat. I will never, ever sugarcoat, but to support someone to find the strength in themselves, to know that what they're being shown is for the highest good somehow, and to help them find out how that is what it's really about, and sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes people will come for a reading and it's not the right time, or you won't connect, and there's a reason for that as well. And I believe it's like spiritual bouncers, so I believe whatever happens, whether you've had a so-called good reading, bad reading, or non-reading, is part of the path, really.
Great. And I love the way you put that. And I think so, the way you teach tarot, there's lots of ways to learn tarot, and the key word with you is transformational. Would you say, if someone studied with you or someone's drawn to the cards, you're not just learning. I mean, you're learning how to help people and do readings, or readings for yourself, or readings for other people, but you're really learning a whole life tool, something which can be with you your whole life as a way of understanding and kind of turning into the best version of you.
So in my course, we take 14 weeks to go through the tarot. We don't stop at the end of the major arcana. So it's like a card a day for 78 days. Okay. And actually what happens is when people have got to the end of that, I kind of give them another tarot exercise to do for the next 6 weeks or so. And they completely resist that, because actually they just want to go round again. They want to do the journey again. And it's like they feel like they've taken the magic glasses off of life, And I'm just like, just do this exercise for a bit, and then you can do both. You can bring the Fool's Journey back in as well. And it's just a way of getting to know yourself at such a profound level that what people come out with is an ability to be okay with who they are and to express what they want and not be afraid of communicating or what comes through them or who they are. That I would say that is the main outcome that people get. Like you say as well, yes, you learn tarot to the point that you can professionally read, but actually when the first time I ran this course, and I thought it was just going to be a tarot course, and everybody was like, whoa, this is so much more than a tarot course. And I was like, oh my God, yes, it's so much more than a tarot course. So it's a bit like you get your real kind of journey into the depth of your soul and finding out who you are, as well as being able to learn to read to a professional level.
Great, I love it. And in your book, The Transformational Truth of You, then there's lots of kind of stories of your own journey with that, aren't there? Because it's not you've lived it yourself for the last however many years. Yeah, I've lived it myself. I've actually just finished my own Fool's Journey a couple of days ago, and this time round it was really deep. So people were saying, how many times have you done this journey? And I've lost count, but I will say that from all the other times I've done it, really, it's been around me. So I've seen the Three of Swords played out in someone who's having an operation, or someone else who's in a love triangle, or I've seen the characters come alive in my life. Whereas this time there was no mistaking that I was the living, breathing character of every single card, and it was incredibly full on. But wow, it feels like it's been peeling off the layers and I've got to the core, and I feel like it's an amazing clearing of everything that's gone before. It's really profoundly, deeply affected me this time, to a point where I'm like, wow, I really feel like I might have got to the bottom of my journey. And of course it goes on, I mean, unless I pop off the planet right now, I'm sure there'll be more, but there's a real definite sense of a very strong clearing of all my karma and my blocks, big time. Wow. Yeah. Wow, and that's inspirational. And also, I love your emphasis on, learning and knowing yourself and being yourself, and the kind of going on new cycles and always going to a different level, like a spiral, different next stage of knowledge, next stage of the journey,
which is the Fool's Journey, isn't it? It goes round and round. If we put it to, if you lay it out in a circle, and it just goes round and round. Samsara. It's all the same. Yeah.
So if people would like to study the tarot with you, or have a reading with you, or get to know you better, where can they find you, and what are you up to at the moment?
Okay, so my site is tiffanycrosara.com, and you can sign up to start the Fool's Journey for free. And so we can get you started for free on that journey. And I don't do readings so much anymore. My passion is very much in, guiding people through this archetypal journey. And so I dedicate my time to that the most. However, I've just started up a service where you can have a free reading with some of my students that have graduated. And so if you go to readings on the site because you want a reading, there is the chance to have one with me, but it's definitely not free. And you can have free ones with my readers that have been trained by me. So that frees me up to actually look after the people that want to do this journey, because that's really where my heart is, big time. And I'm starting to write a third book on that particular thing as well.
Fantastic. Well, your knowledge and enthusiasm is palpable and inspirational, and I really hope some people watching this will be inspired to pick up their decks again if they haven't, or to get deeper if they have already. And thank you so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure too. Thank you, Ben.